The Chinese Communist Party withdraws its support for Putin. Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe is pushed to stand as the Labour Member of Parliament, and this is Disrupt. Hello everybody, welcome to the Ukraine Brief, the show that disrupts the mainstream media's narrative. Don't care if it's left or right or pro-Ukraine or pro-Putin. If you lie, we expose you. If you start spreading propaganda, we have our own propaganda. So let's talk about firstly the it's not even the pro-Putin side, it's the China side, and also let's talk about the fears that I have when it comes to this Team Ukraine narrative as well. This is not, and from day one, my angle has been there's one point about supporting ordinary people and innocent people, and there's another debate about the establishments of all sides. So these are all separate issues. Now, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, until now have been very, very cautious because they understand the new game in this new world order. They believe, they understand that they will not win the public opinion, but also logically speaking, by expanding their empire using the traditional routes, by going into countries, troops on the ground. That doesn't work when they have the power to just buy them out. That's what they're doing. Look at Central Africa. Look at Iran. They bought out Iran. Look at all these places. And they've been waiting until now by not really taking sides initially when it came to Ukraine and Russia. They say, let's just de-escalate. And then they basically send us signals that, well, regardless of which side goes down, we're going to have to basically go in and support them, buy them out. So if Ukraine goes down, then they will go in and say, well, we'll help you with your energy security, buy it from us, we'll drill for you, and they'll own Ukraine, or vice versa. If Putin loses and Russia needs money, considering they've been completely cancelled by the West, then China could say, come and support them and say, well, we will build your infrastructure again, and that means that you will owe us forever. Until now, because China are also very smart. Unfortunately, the Chinese Communist Party, they are changing their tact. And no one's noticing this. It's hilarious that no one's noticing what's going on right now. Now, CGTN, a Chinese state-funded and state-controlled outlet, have started to finally report on the Russia's shortcomings, as well as the fatalities and everything else that's going on the ground. They've been avoiding any reporting of what's going on in Ukraine until now. And the last few days, completely changed that game now. So they're saying that a number of people losing their lives, and they are now completely trying to report what's going on. There's another one that's actually fascinating because China's CCTV suddenly stopped being the sounding board for the Russian army and became the sounding box for the Ukrainian army. And so it's quite interesting how they are just going with the wind, and because they want to focus on China's prosperity and stability in the future. They said this one says, found that Russia was about to end in terms of the outcome of this conflict. And so it is quite weird to see how President Xi and Putin's relationship, where that's going to go, because they've been quite close on a number of areas, but not on all areas, of course. But when it comes to the political dominance, Iran, China, Russia go hand in hand. But when it comes to trade, there's different teams. But with this one, they are now reporting, they are showing the footage of what's going on the ground. They are becoming more similar to what the Western media are showing. It's quite interesting because the Western media from outside, we have our own propaganda. We have we show you, or not we, the media show you what they want you to see from Ukraine. Now China is doing a similar thing for the Team Ukraine side. Now, I've also reported saying that China is not sending anything to any party in this conflict. Sure. And says, are we against conflict? Well, as we said, that we will do everything to de-escalate. This is according to the Chinese ambassador. Now, that's been the line. And at the same time, they were sending resources to Russia, but they have actually stopped. As far as we know, they have actually stopped for now in terms of the publicly sending stuff to Russia because they realize there might come a point where Putin could lose. They're just trying to see all avenues potentially. But at the same time, with this worship factor that we created when it comes to Zelensky, the celebrity factor, I also have a problem with that. I'm going to talk about that part as well, because on the one hand, you could, as I said, you could support innocent people in Ukraine and all the places that are their lives are at risk, but doesn't mean that you have to support their governments. Ukrainian government is no angel. The corruption and everything else that they have, they come with it. Now, the other thing that the CGTN is doing, and all the other outlets, are also promoting the NATO narrative. So, for example, European countries offer free train travel to Ukrainian refugees. This was only being promoted by the Western media outlets, the European outlets, the UK and Americans, and China, and as well as, of course, Russia. Russia was not going to promote this sort of story. Why would they do it? They hide these sort of stories. And China have been hiding these stories. And now they are finally showing that. So you could say when it comes to propaganda and the PR level, the game, they are now swapping sides from Putin to Ukraine. And this could be a bit dangerous, but could also be good. Some people might see the opportunity to say, oh, that does that mean Putin is losing? Or it could just mean that China is trying to shift the narrative themselves. And it's really, really interesting. Now, the problem I have is that, yes, we have all these stories from the West. Major blow to Putin's manufacturer because they stopped making things. They're running out of money. I get it. All that's happening. Fine. They are also running out of money because the economy was never stable. The actual military side never stable. At the same time, let's not completely go all the way because what did I say so many times over the last couple of weeks? Let's not burn all the bridges with ordinary, innocent Russian people because eventually we're going to have to normalize relationships. Whether Putin stays or not, doesn't really matter. We do have to normalize relationships. This Russophobia against actual Russians is dangerous. That's one problem. Second problem is we've created this good versus evil narrative, black and white. And the issue we have is that you could then put someone on a pedestal so much, like Zelensky, who's, on the one hand, you might say, wow, yes, he's a great PR, he's fighting for his people, he's fighting for his narrative, his identity and all that. Good. Well done. But on the other hand, if you create a Mandela pedestal, then you can't bring him down. And he will get away with anything. His government is still corrupt. There are still a lot of issues inside the Ukrainian establishment. I know you might say that, well, now is not the time to debate it, sure. But there will come a time when we will have to debate it. But then I just don't want it to be too late. That they are on such high pedestal that you can't even criticize them. And this will create a much more dangerous narrative. And whether they join the EU or NATO or not, that's not my problem. The problem is, are we going to be creating an angel out of an establishment that is not supposed to be an angel? I criticize Putin. I'm not, people like Putin have destroyed my family in Iran with what they did historically. I get that. Never going to actually forgive the Kremlin. But doesn't mean that I'm necessarily pro the Ukrainian regime either, the government. I'm pro Ukrainian people. Absolutely. Go blue, yellow, whatever you want to say. But do not put Zelensky on a pedestal. It reminds me of them. Speaking of pedestals, look at this. Now, since go Ratcliffe, I made a video about this earlier before the show. Pedestal happens all the time. This celebrity factor that we create, and it's so scary because, as I said in the last video, there are also others like her who are in Iran stuck or who have been freed. One of them literally was freed at the same time as her. Like Anusha Ashuri left the plane with her. The cameras were on him. Nobody pays attention to him. He just went to continue his life. He doesn't want to be a celebrity. Now there's this push to make her, Nazanin, the next Labour Member of Parliament. Yeah, identity politics, mixture of that and fake compassion and crocodile tears and virtue signalling is the reason that Tulip Siddiq, the Labour MP, is next to Nazanin, and they take all these pictures with I just don't understand the concept. I mean, look at this. I mean, it's been 10 minutes and they've already taken it to House of Parliament with Keir Starmer and the Labour shadow bench, the front bench, the shadow cabinet and all the MPs and hanging out because they are the good ones. And the government, who happen to be Tory, they are the bad ones, even though it was the same Tory government that actually saved her at the end of the day. So she decided to not even be grateful. She's now hanging out with the Labour politicians, even though they had nothing to do with any of this. Now I wonder why people like Ashcroft, and I've seen all these tweets a lot, that Nazanin would make an impressive member of parliament. Really? Why? On what basis? Because she wears yellow? Again, because you can't criticize them now. Someone like Nazanin is now untouchable. That's why I'm speaking out against it. Because If you don't do it, anybody right now, any of you, say something, critical thinking, say something, question something about the whole Nazanin story. They say, you're the devil. How can you criticize an angel who wears yellow and blue to support Ukraine, who's gone through all the hardship? A lot of people have gone through hardship. I was detained. My mother had to escape Iran. Some of us have also experienced hardship like that. It doesn't mean that we are untouchable. Nobody is untouchable. And this channel and this show, specifically the Ukraine Brief and Disrupt, is there to disrupt not only the mainstream media narrative, but the cultural narrative that we have. Nobody is untouchable. That's the narrative. So we're going to come back with one more video later tonight, but tomorrow we're going to have a number of big shows. So if you're new to the channel, thank you so much for obviously being patient and watching the last few minutes of this show. Give us feedback, as usual. Leave a comment, but also, if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. Click on a bell next to it. Every day, 6 p.m., we come back with another episode of Disrupt the Ukraine Brief. And every day, throughout the day, we have for you guys short news updates. I'm Tousi, and this was Disrupt.